And I remember holding my friend's hand. That was the last thing I remember doing. She was in the aisle seat next to mine. And that was like the last thing I did, the last person I looked at, spoke to on that plane. And then it was just darkness. I assume at that point that's when the plane actually crashed. It was December 10th, 2005. I was 16 years old and I was a high school student. I was in my senior year of high school. I went to a boarding school, which was in the capital of Nigeria, which is where I was born and raised. And I was in school, I was on campus. This was the end of the semester, and myself and students who lived in the same area as me, we typically board the same plane to go home, to come back to the campus, because the school is made up of students who live all over Nigeria. So we usually like come from different parts of the country to get to the school. Flying was nothing unusual, I mean, it was part of life for us. So this was just like a routine trip, essentially. There was nothing that would indicate what was to come. There was no reason to think anything weird would happen. It was a regular commercial Boeing jet, and I was sitting in front. I was in an aisle seat in front, and next to me was one of my closest friends. She was also in the aisle seat. And then the pilot made the announcement that we would be landing soon over the intercom, which they usually do. And then the descent started. And that was when the turbulence started. And I remember it was just, regular turbulence. Nothing weird. It happens on flights. It's not a big deal, And it just kept getting worse and prolonged. And I just remember like the rising tension in the cabin. No one was saying anything. No one was screaming or anything like that. But like, it was palpable, just the feeling in the air that like, we're all thinking like, what the heck is going on? And then there was like this scream from the back of the plane. It was a woman. She screamed. And at that point, that was just like all that was needed for the chaos to just kind of like erupt. It was like a movie. It was literally like I was in a movie and I was watching this happen. It felt very surreal. And it was just unbelievable. And I just couldn't believe I was in that situation. And I remember holding my friend's hand. That was the last thing I remember doing. She was in the aisle seat next to mine. And that was like the last thing I did, the last person I looked at, spoke to on that plane. And then it was just darkness. I assume at that point that's when the plane actually crashed. But I don't remember the actual impact. I just remember that metal scraping, irritating sound like nails on chalkboard. And then I blacked out. And it was just darkness until I was opening my eyes and I was in a hospital bed in South Africa. And 5 weeks had passed and I was waking up from a coma. I was told later on that the plane crashed and exploded. No one except 2 people survived. I was flown to South Africa the day after the accident, after they had stabilized me in the hospital in Nigeria. But they had to fly me out ASAP because we did not have the facilities. We had the people, brilliant doctors, but no facility equipped to care for third-degree burns. I sustained third-degree burns over 65% of my body. So it was a very dire situation. So they had to get me out of there as soon as possible to a place that could actually give me a chance to survive. I opened my eyes and I saw the nurse that was talking to me, and I saw my mom, and I knew what had happened. Why? Because while I was in the coma, my mom would talk to me. She would talk to me over and over. She would tell me what had happened, where I was, and that I was going to be okay. I could hear her. I could hear everything she said. So when I opened my eyes, I knew where I was. I knew what had happened. And, I believed that I was going to be okay because, my mom said I was going to be okay. I started asking questions, about the intensity of my burns. Where wasn't I burned? What part of me was not affected? There were not a lot, and even those areas, were now, like, they looked like they were burned because they had used skin from those areas to cover the rest of me over and over. So those areas kind of scarred over. And, I just kind of, I took stock of how bad it was and just kind of tried my best to roll with it. And, I guess just not be too affected by the fact that I was so different physically now, and just focus more on like the healing part of things, which was hard enough, honestly, on its own. So 65% third-degree burns, that's basically everything from the top of my head to the soles of my feet burning, except for my torso, my tummy. Oh, and my butt too. So they took skin from my tummy and my back and my butt to like cover up the main areas that burned which was like everywhere else, literally. The most important thing in the beginning was to cover up the large surface areas that were burned off. Third degree means burning down to your dermis, not just the top layer, but the bottom layer of the skin. And in some areas down to the bone as well. It's literally like being naked, but like for the body. Because when your skin is not on you, then you are exposed to every kind of infection. And that can be what ends up killing a person, as opposed to like the actual trauma that, took your skin. There's the pain of the actual accident, of the injuries, and then the pain of the healing injuries. My pain was being managed very severely in those earlier moments. I was barely feeling anything, not just pain, but just feeling in general. It was a very floaty, cloudy time, like the first 2 months or so. I was mostly kept under. I was sleeping more than I was awake during that time. This is even after waking up from the coma. So with the recovery came more feeling, more sensation, and it was just really hell. It was just, the more alive I was, the more pain I was in. So my family was like very supportive and encouraging and just present there. And then the rest of the world was very supportive of my family, including those who lost their kids. Because, that was like, I think one of the if not the hardest part of like dealing with all this was like just coming to terms with the fact that like all these other kids that were on the plane with me, all my classmates were gone. And some of them had all their children in my school, like in the same school, and literally lost all their kids in one go. It's so painful to think about how they had all lost their kids, and, it also gave me grounds to not complain too much, because I knew that no matter how bad things were for me, all those parents would prefer to have their kids in my situation than to just be gone. Once surgery stopped and hospital life was no longer really a thing, it left everything open. So now my future was like now just like a regular future of like whatever you want it to be. At that time, I kind of took back the reins of control, or rather they were given back to me. And now I could do whatever I wanted, and I didn't have to plan things around like surgeries or hospital visit anymore. So in that moment, I think a transition happened where I started trying to live with more intention and live with more purpose. So now I am a singer. I sing, I travel, I perform. I am also a speaker, professional speaker. So I do a lot of inspirational, motivational speeches and talks. I do a lot of advocacy work for bullying prevention and for other burn survivors, representing burn survivors, the world over. And I only recently was able to add author to my repertoire of stuff, I guess, this year. With my book called More Than My Scars. I wrote that. It's a memoir. The reason I wrote the book was because I wanted to be more relatable to people who have gone through any kind of trauma. And I wanted them to see that they're not alone in what they're going through. I understand from a very personal point of view. And I want people to know that they're not alone. I feel like the more you realize you're not alone in something, the more you feel like, okay, then maybe, there's a sense of like companionship when you're going through something with people. It's more likely you're going to get through it, I guess, and I want people to feel that way when they read my book. So we fly and we hope like it doesn't crash, and that ship had sailed with me. So for me, it was like, it's already happened. We've already experienced the worst thing that can possibly happen from flying. So yeah, I'm pretty sure it's done. It's lightning. Sometimes it strikes in the same area twice, but it's unlikely. So I just kind of see it like that, If you want to do things and go around, you're not going to be able to live the full life that you promised everyone you're going to live if you can only go to places that you drive to. Like you will be very limited if that's how you decide to live your life, Kechi. So, I feel like I was just like, well, it's part of life. We move and we just do what we have to do.
I just remember him pulling me back, and I was like, Dad, please help me, please help me. He just kept going, I got you, I got you, I got you. So we get most of the way back to shore. He's carrying me, but, you know, he just punched a shark like 5 times. So I didn't see the shark, and I don't think anybody saw the shark. They might have just saw the fins. But after my dad was, like, carrying me back, he says he saw 2 fins, so there were 2 sharks.